Okay, so there's been some discussion about why things have kind of frozen in haiku, and so I'm going to speak from my perspective. Um, to my mind, it's just a bunch of things that have added up that have made it just very difficult for people. I could tell there was a fairly healthy outside developer community, at least up until 2011. Um, I, I, I don't, I don't think there's been, unfortunately, the package manager. I really do think it caused some issues, but there's some other things. There's some other formidable issues that are going on too, and I think it's just a bunch of things that add up to make it just it's more difficult to try to work on this than just to work with what you have. Where my situation, I'm kind of like the opposite. I've got some free time. I know I got something that works right, so what the hell? I might as well try to make this other thing work better for me. But if and when my life gets more busy or more involved with other things, no, I wouldn't be doing this. Um, I'm kind of giving it just the big push that I can. That I know I can do it now, so might as well. Um, but I'm just gonna go over some things that I just think add up. I think I mentioned all these things, but I have a list of 27 things, and before we start, just the fact of the matter is simply that it's hard to make an operating system, and it it really does take a lot of coordination. And I I will say this. Haiku seems to be one of the first non-commercial development operating system development enterprises that is made both the internals of the operating system and has also tried to build the externals of the operating system. And I think it takes two completely different types of people to do this job. And you could see in the open source world, I mean, yeah, well, the NetBSD, I guess NetBSD and FreeBSD, they do pretty much do both, but usually, traditionally in Unix, just the way things worked out, the GNU project had everything ready but the kernel. And and then some guy with the kernel came along, they put the two together, and hey, great, it works great. Linus didn't start making a package manager. Now, who knows? I mean, he's made Git. He has crossed over in user space. But, so I don't know if my point's going to stand. But the point I'm going to try to make is I think it takes a very precise engineering mind to make a kernel and the internals of an operating system. Because it's kind of like an engine. If you think of an operating system like a car, one guy that's going to be working on the engine is going to be a different guy that's working on, say, the interior decoration. But if the location of the stick shift is bad for interior decoration, well, it's more efficient if we put the stick shift on the roof, um, or in the back seat. Then things don't work out. You know, People, oh, it's a fast car, but shit, you got to reach into the back seat to stick shift, stuff like that. It's kind of like that. It's a way I kind of see it. Um, there's got to be some. I don't see any. I think the people who've made the whoever's the people that are like in charge, I think they're too unbending. They're not flexible enough. It isn't really their fault. That's the way they are. That's why they made such. In general, they've done well with the operating system. I mean, there's still some issues, but I'm just going to go over the whole thing. So I've been using this for a long time. I've got a pretty good idea of what's going on, and I'll mention some other things that hasn't really. Some of these things wouldn't stop me from using Haiku, but I will make note of something that would make the kernel engineers raise their eyebrows. So I guess let's start from the top. Some of these things are personality issues. Some of the things I think are actually engineering choices. And I'll say number one is that I'm convinced that because we're using we're trying to do too many things in general. That's what I'm trying to say, and it isn't really fit well together. So number one, I'm going to say is we're getting inconsistent results from patches. As I saw, there's a patch for DOS-CMU, but it only works, literally only works, if you compile DOS-CMU with GCC 4. If you do it with GCC 2, it won't compile. There are other compilation errors that come up. I've even noticed some differences in behavior between just subtle things between the nightly GCC 4 build and the nightly hybrid build. It's too nebulous, so that's not even on my list. I'm just saying in general, it seems that that's the case. We get a lot of broken recipes in Haiku Porter. Well, why don't you fix it? There's just too many of them, and it's too tedious. So I guess I could go in here and I could try to do library X11, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so there's a recipe. There's a and I'm also trying to just keep some stats. Most of these things were header things, really. All right, so just go to Haiku Porter. Now you gotta understand, I'm not criticizing Haiku Porter. I'm saying this is the state of things. And as they all add up, all together, what you get is something that most people end up either consciously or subconsciously backing away from because they don't want to go through that hassle, or they just don't have the time. If you're dealing with people that are in an older stage of their lives, they could say, okay, I can put commit a couple hours to Haiku. What can I do? And they sit down. And what you really want is things to be in a state where they could actually contribute just a little bit here and there. I guess also this list maybe could consist of some of these things. And I think maybe some of these recipes could be fixed, but they are kind of tedious. So let's just go over here to Haiku Porter. And what I'll do here is I'll try to this is one I was doing today actually. It was the Mesa libraries. Now it's very good. And some of the, it seems like everything just stopped in 2011. It seems like when I look at the patches, the recipes, everything, it just seems like for some reason everything just halted. And maybe mid 2010, but a new version of Senryu was released in 2011. It seems that that's the case, but even the patches, everything, it just seems like the teamwork, everything was going, and all of a sudden it just died. 2010, 2011. Okay, so we're dealing with some stuff that was built, because it's September 2014. So some of the stuff was built 3 years ago. And And what I was talking about with, get people assigned to different package or package sets, it was not a comment about how crappy, supposedly crappy Haiku Ports is. Haiku Ports is going to be the backbone. It's a very important backbone. It's a very important infrastructure that's in place that needs to be there. It's just that the ratio of packages to people that are there to maintain them, they have to be tested every once in a while to see that they still work. There are people who volunteer to do this. That's my opinion. What needs to happen? Somewhat like the Debian project. A couple people that generally that deal with this stuff all the time. They report back to somebody else. Okay, my 10 packages build. Well, I had this problem with this thing. Maybe you can can you point me to someone that might help me? We need that kind of environment. A teamwork environment is going to be better than an environment where either you have to submit the perfect patch and recipe or go home. It kind of feels like it's that way. It doesn't feel like... but it's also because everything's just kind of stopped, really. Anyway, so let's get over here. Let's just go to Haiku Porter. So Haiku Porter, I'm going to say, just like, will work beautifully, great. It'll be a godsend if we have good recipes and good patches. So I'm going to go over what's preventing us from having good recipes and good patches. For one. And I'm going to say that part of that is because we have 2 different versions of GCC floating around. And I am going to guess that, I've got a general sense that even though it's been said that we've made efforts to forward patch GCC 2, it still doesn't. And GCC 4 they both have some problems. But because they have different problems, the patches are going to be different for them. The solution for GCC 4 is going to be for GCC 2. We told everybody to use GCC 2. Well, the problem with GCC 2 is you can't do anything spectacular with just GCC 2. You can't. I wouldn't even have a chance to even think about I still don't even know if I'm going to ever have a chance to compile Firefox. Even a close to recent version of Firefox. But, because of other things that are going on. But, why, no one wants to spend hours of time compiling things. So the end result is they have a 5 or 6 year old version of Firefox. Okay, but let's just okay. So when I go to Haiku Porter, I don't remember what the hell was I trying to build. Oh, it was Mesa Library, right? Haiku Porter, Mesa. Okay, now to be fair, well, there's 2 points of fairness. There's 3 points of fairness. Point of fairness number 1, before I do this, was that if the recipes were updated, if the patches were updated, and if they were able to be consistently applied, which is what I think is holding this up, then Haiku Porter would work very smoothly and very well. So I'm not faulting Haiku Porter. I'm talking about the system. Okay. So what is the system producing? What is our current ecosystem producing? And then what chicken egg effects do they have? So if I'll do this will fail. What effect does that have on me? What is the effect of me not helping have on Haiku Porter? It's like a back and forth. It multiplies. Okay, so going on. So, oh yeah, so 3 points. The first point I think is the most important one is Haiku Porter is going to work nicely once we get all these things together. The problem is it's a huge infrastructure to build, and we've elected to do that on our own rather than using something that was handed to us, and that's package source. We were handed that in a golden platter, and we thumbed our noses at it and decided to make our own in Python. Okay, fine. So now we're on our own. And do we have the community to actually do this? Okay, so let's go here to Haiku Porter. All right, so it's saying, yeah, before I do that, second point of fairness is if there's anything listed on here, it says you don't have this installed, you need this dependency. If I went to Haiku Depot and it was available and I installed it that way, it wouldn't be an issue anymore for Haiku Porter. And I think, in fact, this should have GCC 4.8. That's what I don't understand. And I don't know whether it's available in Haiku Depot or not. I'm not going to look. It may not. What I'm saying is this may not be the perfect example, but it sure is representative. So, actually, yeah, I think before I get back to that, I'm not quite sure if I think this is like a change root environment, actually. I'm going to take that back. I don't think that if I had it installed in Haiku Depot, it's going to solve this issue unless I use the no dependencies option, which in fairness, that was the fair point. So if I wanted to completely build it on my own from the ground up using Haiku Porter, I would have to compile GCC 4.8 as well, along with all the other things it depends upon, because it's listed as a dependency in that recipe. But at the end of the day, it doesn't run. Okay, fine. So I'll use the no dependencies, right? And this is what it says. It says nothing provides LLVM is needed by faked Mesa. I'm not sure what that means. So, then I could do this. I could do one at a time, LLVM. And I guess it checks the environment. It can see everything else is there, otherwise. Gotta be able to look straight before we do this. LLVM, not NM. And I think it tried to build this from here. I did this earlier today. And I may have gotten patient because it seemed like it took a while. But I was doing like 3 other compilations at the same time. Meanwhile, I'm trying to capture the output from my run through the emulators section, so I could do an analysis. See how our unpatched things are doing at this point. I did get a new compile tonight, which is GNU Boy. And who knows, it may be making that right now. Anyway, so it seems to be unpacking the source for this LLVM. I did notice one thing. I was going to move over the, I actually already have the Mesa. That repository is already downloaded, and I was going to go copy it over and stuff it into package source and see how things went. Ended up that there was some other dependency I needed that I had, but I just decided to wait. I'm at a stopping point anyway. So, this, it seems like it's downloading numerous. I went to copy the source repository for the Mesa libraries. The reason why I was even doing that is because of the hard links. They're in the system that aren't in the system. So when Mesa library tries to unzip with tar, it can't do it. The version I'm using, right? So I have to go to a different version. The one that's offered package source, it's a real showstopper. And they have a lot of patches, and everybody's just all focused on that one version of Mesa. They got that all souped up. I just got to be able to unzip the damn thing. So what I'm saying here is that, and this is GCC4. Well, GCC4 isn't recommended. Well, that's crazy. Why would I? Again, going back to what I was saying before, no one has any reason to build stuff that's been built already, or isn't exciting to use. I could go download an older version of Firefox from somewhere for this platform 3, but I don't want to use that version. I want to use a newer version. I want to use a version that when I go to web pages, I could, it's not going to tell me to get a modern browser, right? And shut me out. So it's still, I don't know why it's taking so long to unpack the source. Never seen it do that any time in package source. I've seen it do tool chain wrappers for a while, but not the source. It's downloading all these little Git tags. There's a little Git folder in there for reasons. What does it have, a hashtag on every single file? It literally, there was, the source repository only had 4,000 files in it, and there were like 15,000 Git tags. Okay, I got a big list, so I should just get back to this. But basically, it takes, if it builds, great. But I don't think it's going to happen. Maybe we'll look at the end, but either I stopped it and just said forget it. Okay. Another, the applications that we seem to be targeting and that we have patches for, the patches are now 3 to 4 years old. No one's really updated patches. GCC 4. Okay, so now we're doing an empty Git repository. I remember this, and I think it eventually just dies. Get back to this. So even if all the recipes worked for the things that are there, it's like, yay, great, whoop-de-doo, I compiled a version of Firefox from 10 years ago, or whatever. Eventually you're going to run to something. We have to have the newer version of this to be able to do something you want to do. Secondly, the upside of not using X11, of course, is that we have an environment that it's probably always going to boot. The downside of not using X11 is that it isn't really clear as to how you get these things to actually run once you do compile. So I have a bunch of X apps like Xmojang and Xjump, and I don't know how the hell to start these things. I think one way to do it is if I get Xinit compiled, get it to run, which I still have to deal with some porting issue with it, that maybe I could somehow assign it a display number and then get the app that I want to run to somehow connect to that display. I think there are other ways to do it. There's some dbus method, but basically none of the programs that I've compiled that are X-based, I see that they can run. If they can't actually run in this environment, only certain ones can run, then we've just cut ourselves off from a bunch of apps. Yeah, Xmojang isn't that great, but still, now we got to rewrite apps or have our selection narrowed down because we've chosen this. And quite frankly, it has been quite a while since I've had an issue with X. I did have one maybe about 6 months ago on one machine that has an older graphics card that's an ATI-based graphics card. But that's it. And all I had to do is just download the drivers and I was done. I wouldn't say that your average end user would be able to do that. So there's a slight advantage to having this, but quite frankly, I'd be very happy to see this app server ported over to Linux. I tell you the truth, because that to me that's the major thing. Not necessarily the sound, not necessarily anything. I could still use KDE 3, so I mean, what the only real sales point here is, to me, is the graphical user interface and the potential stability that this could offer. If we keep a rein on things, we're not injecting pulse audio in System D and every time something new comes out. Look at this, we're still going. All right. All right. So this is kind of like a segue. So one of the things I'm gonna have to do to build some of the more fancy, X11 apps, besides these little mahjong games and things, that I have yet to be able to get to run. Okay, so now we're gonna build. Let's see how it goes. Finally. I got 2 processors here, and I got like 2 to 4 gigs of RAM, so it's not that. Going to this virtual machine. It's a virtual machine. Yes, the screen is wider because I'm in the GC4 environment. That right away, that tells me there's something different going on between the way GC2 and GC4 compiles. And it should be obvious, they're 2 different versions, but it's going to result in different patches. It's going to result in... So a recipe that works for one doesn't work for the other. So now we got to make 2 recipes, or half of them are going to be unlabeled. Oh, the guy forgot to say that he compiled this in GC4 or 2. It's going to happen. It's the kind of things most people aren't really used to. So you got to be so engineering precise to contribute. It takes away from the fun of it, really. It makes it, you can't, because what matters at the end of the day, I'll just go into this. What matters at the end of the day is if we can get 4 people to do half of the main developer's work, the developer spends half of his time, it takes half the amount of time it would otherwise. The real trick is to be able to get it to end up the way you want it. It's not that maybe at step 2 everything was crap, or parts of it were crap, or parts of it weren't the way you necessarily approved of it. It's more or less getting there. So, for example, in my case, I'm having some issues just getting patches, and sometimes I'm able to get a patch, and I got one for XML category manager. I could probably send that. I kind of don't know where to send it, but and even if I did, I don't know if anybody would accept it. Or if they did, if I'd get the 5th degree about, well, you fucked up on this, you could have done it this way, what the hell is this kind of hack? I can understand that. But the way it really should be is I should be able to say, okay, I try to work on this XML cat, and the only way I can get this thing to compile is to chop this stuff out. Here you go. You can look at it. Here's the diff. There's the original file. Maybe you can come up with a better answer. All right, so tag team. This guy looks at it. Okay. All right, well, at least you got me started, so yeah. Okay, we'll just change it this way. And, it's all that attitude. So the feedback I get, well, thanks for getting me started on this. Half the work is figuring out what file actually needs to be changed, and the other half is maybe doing the proper patch. Third. And the other third is to actually upload it and get it incorporated into this system here. We kind of don't really have that community feel, really. All right. So anyway, yeah, segue. Right. So my eyes glass over. So I was thinking, well, I really want to use package sources Mesa because it's heavily patched. and it may just work. And it's a real pain to revert to another another version. It's complicated. It's got Glut library, the Mesa library, everything's kind of incorporated in. If it worked, it'd be great. So I just the one thing is the damn thing won't unzip. So you know what? I really don't want to set up, but I'll just do an NFS. I've never done NFS before. I'll see how it works. So I set an NFS up in Linux. I've done all the little tests to see that NFS is actually running. It's writable, all this stuff. And come to find out, the NFS is broken. So the NFS that used to work, Haiku doesn't work anymore. So that's off the table. I can't even stick a USB stick in here. And get that to mount. And see if I can unzip the Mesa libraries on the NTFS formatted USB stick. Well, it's the problem with the Mesa people. Well, okay. Yeah, great. I can blame them, but I still don't have what I want. I'm still not able to make something for other people that they want. So we could blame all day. At the end of the day, we're not going to have what we need. So I thought the hard links might have been an issue with Python. I'm not convinced that it is. I mean, it could be on the 2 remaining modules that don't build. I don't know. But that's just another barrier. Which is, if we can't, if our file system doesn't do what other file systems do, and it's gonna, so if you got 5 guys that are trying to compile Mesa, 2 of them are going to give up just on that. Another one's going to give up on the NFS that's broken. Another one's going to give up on the USB stick that's broken. And I don't know if I'm pretty creative, but I don't know if I'm going to come up with anything to get that thing unzipped. So I'm probably going to be spending a good week just trying to figure out how I can get a version of Mesa compiled in this system. And I still don't know what the result's going to be. I still don't even know how the hell I'm going to run any of these X11 apps, even if I get them working. They're all looking for a display. I don't know what the hell what display are we talking about? I can't even get Nmap to compile in here because, I'd have to hack that just to see what the system is. Maybe I can do an Nmap from the outside. But I want to do it against 127.01 to know what's running. I don't think it's I don't know if I SSH'd if I'd be able to. No, I probably wouldn't even be able to do Nmap that way either. Alright, so now NFS is broken. And the only guidance about it was on some developer email lists where the developers themselves were trying to figure out how to do it. One guy reported success, and now that method doesn't even work. Hard links I just mentioned. And then we have the issue with the math library and the library network. And you know what? It's just a waste of time to patch those things. What we ought to do is make something in our own system that'll just get rid of those issues when trying to compile apps. Somehow or some way. Build some kind of layer that'll, if a compiler calls for the math library, that it'll find a fake math library that'll point to the real one or something. Instead of having to hack all these configure scripts, thousands of them, for the math library. Make it installable so we can remove that if we want. Now, and I'm complaining about it, but I've been able to overcome a lot of that with the little tricks I'm doing here in package source. But that doesn't mean that anybody else is going to think what I'm doing is a good idea or do it or be able to repeat it. It's just one more pain in the ass complication that we don't need. I just want to say, if you don't want to take the suggestion, that's fine. It's just one other thing that adds up. Eventually, it's going to come and it's going to be a real problem for something to try to do or create something that's worthwhile. Yeah, I know they got the Qt libraries ported. They're probably not doing it in this current environment. I hate to say it. The package, it's not impossible to make a package for Haiku, but it's just too goddamn stringent. You want to know how hard it is for me to make a package in package source? I just change directories, I type make install, and if it makes a package, I'm happy. I don't have to worry about making package lists, nothing. Now, a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's a lot more people that are working on package source versus the number of people that are working on Haiku ports and Haiku Porter. But at this stage, after fighting through stuff that won't compile because of missing headers or over stringent adherence to POSIX, the last thing I want to do is try to make a recipe with, so let's just do library X11. This thing's still going, my God. So there's a recipe for library X11. Let's just do the no dependencies right now. And it says, there's no copyright found in the recipe. All right, so I go, I can go add a copyright. I don't know who the fuck, so now I got to do some research. I just want to compile a fucking app. I don't want to go do research. Okay, so let's go with, why the fuck should a missing copyright prevent me as an end user? Well, there's some, tell me about it. It should be, if there's an option to avoid this shit, it should be the other way around. There should be an option to turn this shit on. Okay, so I can't build library X11, supposedly, because there's no copyright in the fucking recipe. I'm trying to help out. So let's see, maybe we got a couple hours free, the wife's gone off with the baby, over to for the day, and I've done all the housework and I got a couple hours. Oh, let's see how I can help out Haiku. You sit down and you get this shit. End of the day, you've built a recipe, and then who the fuck do you give it to? Right? Right, so you can go in there, you can put in the copyright, and then it'll be another error. It's no depends. Then you put that, no license version. Oh, there's no requires. There's no, so you end up building a whole enterprise class package just so you can fucking compile something locally. I'm sorry. No one wants to do that shit. Package source, I don't have to do that shit. I don't. I simply have to have a package list, basically. So, but it doesn't matter what package source does. I'm talking about what we have. So now I look at this and I'm thinking, well, shit. And then the system's restricted on top of it. So if you want to install anything, yeah, you've got the non-packaged, of course. But you don't have write access to the system. You have read access, but not write access. You try to compile something. And now you have to have this weird ass, Oh yeah, and if you've compiled something in Haiku Porter, and then you put the package in the packages directory, I don't know how the fuck to link up to any of the libraries in there, because the library structure is completely backwards. So it's got the packages directory. We can't have a user directory, but we have a packages directory. And underneath that is the name of the package, and then underneath that is the .self directory that you can't see, unless you put .self in the, the location bar. Oh yeah, and then it's not even clear. If you use Haiku Porter and you're done with the compile, you think, oh, it's installed. No, you actually, what they don't tell you, or just isn't self-apparent. There's probably documentation somewhere, but you really ought to take that package and ask you if you want to put the package in the apps directory inside your home folder, the packages directory inside your home folder to use it or not. It really should do that because it doesn't really. Most of the time, when you compile something and you do make install, I know we're not doing make install here, but one might assume it's doing that. So you think it's not until you move the package and you got to figure, well, where? Oh, look around. Oh, there's the packages directory. Oh, okay. Where does it go? Maybe if I put it in here. Oh, okay. Now it's working. You kind of have to figure that out. But even if you stick it in there, if I want to run a compilation over here and I want to link to that library, I don't know how the fuck to do that. Or two of them. If I have compilations that would require two of those different libraries, I'll tell you, those libraries don't show up in boot system library, develop library. They're in packages, some shit down over here. So you can't even link to them. That's a clear incentive not to use Haiku port. At least you can put your own compiled stuff inside of non-packaged. It's good for the end user, but not for developing or linking or anything like that at all. So I was saying that there's two stringent rules for packaging and using Haiku Porter. Then and then we frustrated a large portion of the community that had been making apps people wanted to use and doing a fairly good job between the community as a whole coming up with most of the apps people wanted to use. All you could really say is, well, your Thunderbird and your Firefox are kind of old, but you guys have pretty much delivered. The Haiku pretty much delivered. And unfortunately, most of the people there package their stuff to put stuff in the common directory. So now we've eliminated the common directory. I know, you can make a common directory, but most people actually, when you give out instructions on thousands of packages to unzip this stuff in the common directory, that creates more work where you don't need it. I think a lot of people just left because of that, and then the fact that now they can no longer have write access to any part of the system but their own home directory. That really turned a lot of people off. I can just tell you that right now. I already mentioned there's no clear way to link the libraries, the Haiku packages. And then we're adhering to POSIX default. So, a bug comes up for library X11 to do with the Sunland variable. And our answer was, well, that's not defined by POSIX, so we're not going to change our headers so that error will go away for you. You have to maintain this patch ad infinitum until the X11 people who we have no communication with suddenly decide by a miracle that they're going to accept our patches and therefore allow us to get around the Sunland issue. 3 years later, I'm hacking library X11 and, I got it to compile and wow. The latest patch is from version 1.08 and I'm doing 1.16. Because the community is exhausted. Then we have, it happens a lot. I think that some of the problems I'm having compiling is not just because it's a different operating system, but it's because we wanted to make our headers super POSIX compliant, and so we're not going to do this other stuff. That's not POSIX. We're not doing that. So there's some apps that simply won't compile because our header is in a different directory than what this older program expects. and we don't have right access to make a copy and put a second copy of the header where we want it. Supposedly because of a package manager. It doesn't make any damn sense to me. There's something that happens at home a lot. I'll boot in, I'll go into the terminal, and it's doing all caps. And it doesn't matter if I turn the caps lock off or on. This is in the hybrid. It's not in the GC4. It decides that it wants to stay on, so I got to reboot. And hope that this time, when I press whatever key I press, it will not be caps locked. Also, the terminal will not halt a process when you hit Control-C. It'll just keep going. Sometimes the terminal just simply decides it's not going to listen to you. There's been times I've had to actually reboot to get the whole thing working. Oh yeah, another thing about Haiku ports. We don't have any security patches. I mean, none. We have patches to get things to compile, and there's different, I don't know the level of expertise, but I've assumed that the people that are making these patches have more than I do, but there may be some people that don't. But we don't have any security patches. Those were all available with package source, and again, we decided not to do that. Oh, okay. And here we are. Well, that's the Library X11. This is still going. I don't know what LLVM is, but I don't remember billing it elsewhere, but okay. So, and I've already said that I think it's absolutely silly to keep a GCC2 version of an operating system for backwards compatibility when we've broken backwards compatibility. Right? There's plenty of apps over at Haiku where they're just, you can install it, but you have to unzip it and manually place everything. And also, the operating system feels very isolated. NFS doesn't work. We should have been working on the Samba client, quite frankly, instead of doing NFS. And at the end of the day, it's really funny, sometimes. I read these blogs that these summer of code people make, and I see like 4 pages of some guy talking about Python 2.7, and he's almost got it. He's talking about, I don't even recognize what the fuck the guy's talking about. All I know is I got it to compile. I mean, he's not talking about any things that I did. For the most part, works. Not perfectly, but it works. And kind of the NFS, I'm just, what's the deal? So, I mean, it literally doesn't work. What happened? But we always seem to blame the Google Summer of Code people. I think they're trying their best, but they're coming across the same kind of difficulties that I do. And this is the perspective of a person trying to compile apps. I can get done in 1 day in NetBSD have much more success and satisfaction in 1 day with NetBSD than it's taking me a month and a half, 2 months here in Haiku. Now tell me, if I had 2 hours of free time and I wanted to help some open source, community-based operating system, I would choose to install NetBSD and get a package source running and get a bunch of packages compiled for people to use for desktop NetBSD. Hands fucking down. No question. Because we don't make it easy for ourselves. So the engineering may be correct. It's more correct to have the copyright date and all that stuff. But it's like all the onus is all back on, it's all packed in one area. And the alternatives aren't, we do have a lot of user space problems in Haiku here. I can't mount a USB stick. I mean, these are basic things. I mean, forget about scanning. In Linux, I might complain about scanning or whether my camera. I know it works consistently now. Maybe a little confusing to get it in there. Sometimes things that used to work don't work anymore, but you can work through it. Eventually, you get some help. There's enough of a community and flow that we don't have that, so we have to make it easy, and we're not doing that. We're just not doing that. I mean, is this really necessary for for the Mesa? What the hell is this doing? How? It's been going on for 20 minutes. I mean, Python doesn't take that long. Anyway, maybe it's that way. I don't know. So all I really have is if I want to get. Oh yeah. When I try to just simply log into Gmail with Web Positive, it won't even. I have to use the HTML based client because the networking isn't reliable enough. I have a very fast internet connection, and there's not one damn OS that I've had any problems to this degree where I can't log into Google because I have it in VirtualBox. So it feels very isolated. I have no way to get anything out of this damn thing but FTP. All the applications are old. And when people talk about these things, here's one thing that really pissed me off. What the fuck? So, the guy that makes Senru, I figured out what that is. At first I thought it was Russian or something, but no, it's just kind of like it's a kind of Japanese poem that a lot of people confuse with haikus. And it was just, he made a distribution. He put a Qt toolkit in there. And it looks nice, You kind of have to be in the club to know how to run this damn thing, but you can convert his raw image into a VirtualBox disk image using VirtualBox manage convert. So I booted up, and I hate QEMU. I hate it, passion. It just the displays crap. So I got it running. There's a common directory in there, and so so there's a Facebook page, like this Senyu. The first post I see is from the Haiku ports guy. I don't even bother running with this. We want to make Haiku good. We don't bother with this Senyu. Instead of running Senyu and applications you want to run, go make some patches for Haiku ports. It was like, why the fuck did this guy go out of the way for no fucking reason to slam an example of how well Haiku could be used from a guy that's actually contributed patches to Haiku ports? So people that actually actively discourage other people from trying to do things with the operating system that people want to do with the operating. No one wants a blank fucking operating system with no apps that run and 5-year-old things and broken ports. There's like they kick the, and then it's like the developers are very eager to complain about nothing. Oh, you sent an email. Oh shit, you're screwed up. I can't develop anymore. I'm such a frustrated developer because you sent 2 emails to the development list. Oh, you sent you stole a couple jokes in IRC. That's spam. Even past contributors if they haven't contributed a patch in the last year, someone's gonna mention on the email list. Talk about the whole atmosphere here. Should we kick them off and not make them, have CVS access or whatever the hell you call it? Yeah. So even though the installs are easy and the apps are, once the applications are made, it's just it's too form it's too much fucking work. Yeah, I could do it. I could sit here and wrestle with Library X11 all fucking afternoon, or I could start building up a set of, or you start compiling, doing some serious fucking compiling. And I'd rather try to do some serious fucking compiling. Try to get somewhere. If I'm able to solve the Mesa library and figure out how these X11 apps are going to be able to run, I'll be happy with the result. I'll be happy to put out and have some packages for people to fucking use instead of dicking around with recipes. What version of Library X11 is that? 133. The current version is 162. Do I want to dick around with a 133 recipe? If I make the recipe, who do I submit it to? If I do, will they accept it? Or if they don't like me or what I say or what I'm doing, are they going to go out of their way and make some stupid post at Facebook to say, don't even bother with that. Same guy, this guy keeps the patches, I like the fact he's kept the patches. But the guy just I get on there and I start talking about people teaming up to try to take responsibility as meaning. If I took responsibility for DOSEMU, every time a new release of DOSEMU came out, no matter if he's got the patches or not, and he's got the recipes and he's keeping good care of them, I would test it out every fucking time. And every fucking time the new version of Haiku came out, I would test that in the new version of Haiku. That's what taking responsibility means. It doesn't just mean making a patch. That's two completely different functions. Testing and maintaining is different than safekeeping. They're both just as valuable. Guy comes on like I'm slamming Haiku ports. No, I'm not. But the reason why they're now getting old, these patches are getting old, and the versions are going up, but the patches aren't, is because it's just this whole developer community, they're just too idealistic. So they have no problem slamming other people and feeling self-righteous about it. But the end result is it doesn't look very self-righteous to me. Then we got some unexplained slowness and kernel panics. And I'll tell you, every once in a while I'll have a kernel panic. And I can bring it up anytime I want to, if I just go and try to compile glib2. Now, I don't know what the issue is. I'm going to try to find out what it is. But I don't know if anybody cares to even listen to what the fuck I have to say. And if I told anybody, I'd probably be told, well, that's the problem with the compiler of glib2. There seems to be a pattern. There's always something wrong with everybody else. But we never decide, because, because in the name of our perfection, in the name of our POSIX perfection, nothing else is going to compile. Okay, you add all this stuff together, it's like, well, forget it. This is just a dead end. There's just too much fucking things to do. Too much work. Why should I work with this? Also, the kernel logs are non-descriptive. When I was getting log readings when I was trying to do Python, all I got was a not allowed. So I had to guess, and I guessed wrong that the hard links were causing, Python not to compile. That wasn't the case. It was actually the use of a \n for an inline in one of the Python test Unicode files. And when that ran, the test would fail, and so Python wouldn't build any of the modules, just about. If the kernel logs were a little more descriptive, I might figure out what the fuck was actually going wrong and be able to report it to somebody. But since I can't, it gives me some error number, which there's no real documentation that I could find unless I wanted to dig through thousands of files of source code. And then eventually we're going to have hardware issues. We're either missing some headers or they're placed somewhere else, and it's 24. Um, Developers are encouraged to develop for the worst GCC that there is. All these packages that are new, you can't tell me that they're testing it against GCC 2 just for us. They're testing it in GCC 4, and if it doesn't compile in GCC 2, frankly, they don't give a fuck. There are some projects out there that are good enough to try to take our patches. But even the nice ones only take half of our patches. Python won't even listen to us. Because when we start talking about how we don't have a user directory and no hard links, they just say, okay, well, come back when you have a real operating system. I hate to say that, but I mean, that's their attitude. We have to face what the reality is. Whether we like it or not, that's the reality of the situation. Now, I will say the guy from Haiku Ports in that situation was doing the best he did. He did good, in both situations. He at least tried to build a bridge with the Python developers. And the other situation, I don't remember exactly which one it was, he did get them to accept at least part of what was necessary. I don't remember what package that was, but one of these ones that had the UINT64 error in it. And they said, well, we don't look to a header for that thing, because Ingo had written this whole elaborate patch. Thoughtful, probably technically perfect. And the guy just goes, well, yeah, we don't get the UINT from over there, we get it from somewhere else, so can you rework this? Oh, the guy goes, well, can you just take this part on the top? And he goes, okay. Don't remember which one that was, but I think it might have been, it could have been Mesa or something related to it, leading up to it. Then users don't have write access to the system except for their home folder. I guess, you can create a directory, but the system directory they don't have write access to. And guess what? There might be bugs that maybe a user might want to fix, There may be some changes they might want to make to some files to do some experimenting to get to the bottom of what the hell's actually going on so they can report it back. But if they don't have that access, they won't be able to do that. And then I really wonder that because some parts of our operating system now is suddenly not writable, I wonder if we're having some issues with some parts of the operating system because the code was written under the presumption that write access would be there. And since it's no longer there could be little parts here and there that are having issues, which is why at times the OS feels choppy. I don't know, I'm guessing. Then we got the kernel panics that happen. So you put it all together, and it just gives you the feel. It happens often enough, you get this feeling like, oh, this kernel isn't all that. I mean, it doesn't make you reboot. You just type exit, and you get back to where you were, but you don't get a feeling like you got a solid kernel, and maybe if you build stuff on it, maybe it ain't going to work so well, so, Anyway, that's the situation. I mean, I'm being flat fucking honest, So now you guys are stuck with me trying to compile things, because people that do this stuff for a living don't want to deal with this shit anymore. And basically, what I would suggest is loosen things up. Don't be so quick to point out other errors that people have. And don't always look at things in such a negative way. Just because the Sinu or Surinu, I forgot how to pronounce it exactly, distribution was made, it doesn't mean that this guy could have been making patches and fixing Haiku ports for everybody. I've had responses to some, it gets down to the point now where I just get on there and I just say, well, some guy was saying, well, I don't know if this guy's work's probably pretty good, but is he really perfect? Then the answer implied that he was, and I said, well, is this guy an android? It's like sometimes some of the answers that come out of the development list aren't really real world. Real world people make mistakes. They don't have endless amounts of time to commit to things. And so the whole idea is to be able to use the work other people do. And the real skill comes in where the people that have more, they could correct things. Instead of like, oh, that's wrong, and oh boy, let me just take the time to tell you what an idiot you are, There's no need for any of that. Just like, oh, okay, well, thanks for starting that. I could finish this up. I could fix it up in a few places. You really got the ball rolling. You made it easier for me instead of, well, that change is real shit. What are you, a fucking idiot? I know they don't say that, but it really feels that way, some of these things that I read. If the email is too wordy, oh, could you please not have so many words? It just gives me a headache. It's like, what are these guys? Mount Olympus or something? So that's the whole impression. I have to be honest. If no one else is willing to tell you, I am. I'm not against you guys. But just think back about those things and what impact did they have. Right now we're trying to build a team. We're not trying to break one down, and that's just my opinion of the whole thing. Have I fucked up? Oh yeah, I fucked up. But trust me, this may not be the best thing for me to do right now, but I just think I should say it. I'm okay. I'm not really making... I'm not going to be making the next major app for the, If I go away and no one wants to talk to me or work with me again, that's all right. But maybe if some of the things I say are listened to and things go better, it was worth it. So, that's it. We're still going here. I don't know what that is, but... Mesa Live. We're still doing LLVM. Next time I do a video, I'll let you know if it actually let me go to the next one, or said, oh, nothing provides.